what is an energy technology company? We're so glad you asked. Some might think it means lab coats, oil rigs, and refineries. But at Baker Hughes, it also means cleaner, safer, smarter solutions. I didn't even know that was possible type of technology. And redesigning what we know for a future we don't. Our who is our how, and they're anything but average. They're movers, makers, status quo shakers, all on a mission to do what others don't by committing to what others won't. Like industry-transforming innovation that unlocks the power of AI, finding new ways to cut carbon emissions, and sensing what's next to produce more energy from less. We may be 100 years old, but we're always in startup mode, and we problem solve not just for the benefit of our partners, but for everyone, everywhere. Because we're on a mission to do what's never been done by creating what no one else does. Energy technology isn't just what we do. Now, it's who we are. Look to us. Baker Hughes.
Well, Keith, great to have you. Thanks a lot for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Glad to be here.
So let me start by telling us a little bit about Baker Hughes' transformation to an energy technology company. What does that mean for you and how you operate?
You bet. So bottom line is it's all about digital transformation. So we provide, technology to integrated oil companies, and it's all about really making things better, faster, more efficient, safer, more carbon neutral in that sense. And so it's really creating new insights to technology. So it's really a very fascinating area, an area that's really changing tremendously because of really the ability to now really look at how equipment is working, as well as just the new technology. And then for a company like Baker Hughes, we're expanding out beyond just oil and gas into other areas where that technology is relevant. So that's really what we mean by energy technology, where there's really energy transformation more than anything.
Yeah, that sounds pretty major, obviously, as you start using with products that are moving well outside of traditional oil and natural gas. There's a lot of transformation there and probably a lot of exciting things and projects that you're working on too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
When I know that Zero Trust is obviously big for all of you, what role will does Zero Trust and will it play in Baker Hughes' transformation now and going forward?
You bet. So if I can give you just a very brief overview of who Baker Hughes is, right? It tells you we came from a General Electric oil and gas, which is a subsidiary of about 35,000 individuals, with Baker Hughes, again, a 100-year-old company with also 35,000 employees. So in June of 2017, we created a new company, New York stock ticker and new stock ticker, et cetera. And then what happened was after about 5 or 6 months, General Electric, who was our major shareholder, decided they wanted to get out of oil and gas. So after 18 months, we became a new Baker Hughes company. Well, that 18-month window gave us the time to really go in and decide who do we want to be as a Baker Hughes. And so for us, it was a fantastic opportunity for us to really think through what's the future going to look like. And this is really where Okta really came into the picture. So we looked at basically a new identity system. We looked at a new cloud system. In my area, a new cyber fusion center. But we had to go in and build a new accounts receivable, a new foundation for treasury, all those type of things. So we have a tremendous, amount of work that's going on in terms of building that new Baker Hughes. So it's really given us quite a challenge, to say the least, as we have moved forward in terms of our new relationship. So it's actually a 3-year journey, unlike most companies where you do a divestment and you flip badges overnight. We actually have a 3-year transition period. And so the issue around Zero Trust becomes absolutely fundamental in terms of our way forward, because now we need to make sure that we understand who has access to these new applications that we're building. How do we make sure when we have a kind of an any-to-any relationship, how do we make sure we're protecting our intellectual property?
Yeah.
Because as a manufacturing organization, it's all about IP, intellectual property. What are we doing to protect that? And as we go forward in terms of our cloud, new applications, et cetera, how do we authenticate and authorize individuals? So It's a tremendous change that we're seeing within our organization. And Okta's really been fundamental in that journey along the way.
That's great. So obviously a big piece there is what your security strategy is and how it changes and how it evolves, in particular, as your industry does and as the risks do that are associated with that, but also specifically in your case, as you said, you were under some very interesting times, just gone public, just listed, now had to remanage into splitting up the two companies. I mean, there were very basic things, I know, like Office 365 deployments that you had to figure out on the fly. Tell us a little bit about that security strategy and what your thinking was and kind of how you worked through that.
You bet. So you mentioned Office 365. So I'll give you an example. So we were pushing for multi-factor authentication with Okta, and our infrastructure team was running ahead and had done some pilots around Office 365. And during the time that they were doing some experiments with Office 365, because they were using the native tools for MFA, they actually were compromised. And so it was really clear that we needed to move to Okta as quickly as possible. So along our journey, as we were piloting Office 365, in December of 2019, we had about 17,000, of our staff on Office 365. Over a weekend, we moved it to Okta, and would you believe that literally with those 17,000 individuals during that time, that Monday morning, we had 12 phone calls from our help desk asking questions around authorization and authentication. So it was amazing in terms of our journey. But when we look forward in terms of our security strategy, Okta has been really critical for us. We rolled out in February a new workday system and a new contract management system. So we had to go in and create what we use Okta, we call it My ID.
Yeah.
We had to roll out Okta to 70,000 employees and again, 13,000 contractors. And so when we talk about our staff, we're talking about office staff, we're talking about people that are working in the field, 29 days off, 29 days off.
Workers, right?
Manufacturing, exactly. So people that never use a PC, except they want to check their paycheck, right? They want to see what's going on. And so we had to go in and figure out between December, and February, how do we enable all of these individuals? Well, because of Okta, they could do it on their phone, they could do it on a work PC, they could do it on a telephone, et cetera. And then we're actually a huge cloud-enabled company today. So, but we built a brand new cloud environment. And so again, Okta has been fundamental in establishing that foundation, not just from the administration, but also, of course, from the application developer perspective. So we have something like 400 applications that we're moving from a GE cloud environment into a new Baker cloud environment. And again, Okta has been fundamental in really helping us through that journey.
So obviously a lot's changed since you first agreed to join us at Oktane some months back. I know for one, we're doing the event virtually, obviously. Thank you very much for joining us for that. And the spread of COVID-19 has had a very far-reaching impact. How have you been responding at Baker Hughes? What security challenges have you faced as you adapt to this new, remote workforce, in particular with this largely distributed group, as you just discussed?
Yeah, exactly. So first, just a real shout out to both the infrastructure team and our security teams and literally kind of doubling capacity around the globe around VPN access, et cetera. But when I think of it from an Okta perspective, really there's three different areas. The one is the ability for us to integrate Okta with our legacy Cisco VPN environment. Very seamless, very easy to do, very straightforward, allowed us, again, a new, from a security perspective, MFA, just right up front. The second, though, was because of Okta, we were able to go in and do things like Office 365 and Skype without using VPN access. So because we were able to create kind of a web application dashboard for our employees, again, we don't need to use VPN. So it's, again, saved us from a bandwidth perspective. And the third aspect is really issues around how easy it has been for us to deploy our applications in our Okta portal. What's really positive is that everybody knows My ID. So My ID is kind of, well, when can we use My ID? Because it's been easy for us to get into these applications.
So security teams like yours obviously have evolved from, in particular, based on what we just talked about, being a check the box necessity to being an essential part of an organization's strategy, in particular an organization like yours. So now security's gone from being that business protector to also being an enabler, right?
Yeah.
How have you seen that evolution play out at Baker Hughes? Certainly in the past, 6-9 months, but also more recently.
Yeah. So if I think back, right? So oftentimes the CISO organization was known as the Department of No.
Right.
No, you can't do this. No, we can't make this happen. No, this shouldn't happen, et cetera. The reality is the CISO organization needs to be an enabler, right, for the business. So we really need to understand what those business processes are, what products that we're selling, where we're going, where the business is trying to go. And so, as we've seen, this department evolve, it's really around partnership. And a success for me is when the business is coming to me and saying, we want you to come in and help us protect this information, protect this data, or we're doing a merger, acquisition, or divestment. I want to make sure that the data that we're pulling together for this business deal is protected. Yeah. Can you come in and make sure that that's happening, in a secure way? But one other thing I did want to mention in terms of what's evolving, and that is the relationship in terms of companies communicating about what they're seeing in terms of cybersecurity related issues. If we don't communicate, and share this information, as well as sharing information with governments, in our case, the Department of Energy, FBI, if we don't share information, we're really on the back foot, because we know our adversaries, in fact, nation states, are sharing information. And so it's really critical that we do work together. And I do see some positive trends in that direction. So I'm real pleased about that.
Let's wrap it up by paying it forward a little bit. I mean, not just about your organization, but you yourself. You've grown that organization at Baker Hughes. You've taken on more and more responsibility. You've clearly established yourself as a business enabler, technology leader, but also a business leader. What advice do you have for a lot of the other security leaders listening in who might want to do the same in the times ahead?
Well, so first of it is make sure that you really do understand, the business that you're operating in, be it, in this case, manufacturing, but be it, healthcare or whatever it is, really understand the business. And so build those working relationships with product company members and understand kind of what their day job looks like. Because at the end of the day, again, you are a service provider. So how can you service them? How can you help them along the way? The other is really work on your listening skills versus your presentation skills. What is it that you're hearing? And then I look at things in 3 different areas: kind of capacity, achievements, and relationships. Are you building the right relationships? Are you going to the people that you want to hear the right answers from, or are you going to people that really will challenge your understanding? Capacity in terms of, are you really thinking broadly in terms of how to solve problems? And then from an achievement perspective, are you actually delivering? Are you delivering what you have promised to your management team? Then the last couple of things is issues associated with taking a risk. You at the end of the day, you're going to make mistakes. You got to put yourself out there. And for anyone that thinks that a career is going to be in a nice straight line, it doesn't work that way. You got to step aside. You got to step out of the box. You got to do things differently, and really, to take that risk. And again, being security and a compliance-oriented individual, you got to take a risk to really be successful going forward.
That's great. Well, hey, Keith, I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to chat with us today. Very informative. Certainly, I learned a ton. Thank you again for your support and your partnership, and thanks again for your time today.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks. Take care.